Hello, everybody. Kay Crystal Griffith here, and welcome to our daily edition of Emotions, Wisdom, and Your Body. Today, we are going to do something a little special. I have to give a presentation tomorrow on the emotional connections of certain technology and how it influences our bodies, our emotions, our souls, our spirits, all kinds of fun stuff. So we are going to do our little run through tonight because it's great information for you guys as well on our emotions and how they actually work. And then you get introduced to this really cool technology that helps your emotions calm down as well. So let's get started. So I'm going to take it from the top. Hello, everybody. I am Kay Crystal Griffith, and welcome to HPT and CBT Emotional Connections. We will delve deeper today into our emotions and their effects on our body, soul, and spirit, and the effects of HPT and CBT are having on those emotions. Remember, emotions are our body's wisdom. So here's your disclaimer. I am not a doctor and I'm not an LPC, nor do I play one on any social media platform or for Vox Life. I will leave that to Dr. Joe and Dr. D. I have my master's in education, 2 emotional trauma certifications, inner healing accreditations, and more. And this information today is really for education, edification, and encouragement. I've been a certified trauma practitioner for 6 years, and I'm working with many clients on their cause and effects of their emotions. And in the last 19 months, I've been observing the effects of using HPT and CBT during these sessions. I've not kept stats, but results are truly unimaginable for some of these clients and their families. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to walk through a little presentation. Let's just cross our fingers and hope it all works. All right, I believe we can make it work. I said, share. I believe in you. You know, there are moments that you just have to wonder if things are actually working. All right, we're hitting present. Let's see how we do, folks. You know, it really doesn't seem to matter how much you are prepared. And I did have this up on the screen, and now it's not there. All right, here we go. So here is our lovely screenshot of HPT and CBT emotional connections. All right, and I believe that it can go to the next slide. You know, maybe it's a good thing that we're doing this today. So as just a friendly reminder, I am here for your edification, education, and encouragement, folks. So here's our little preview of what we're going to talk about today. First of all, we're going to talk about your brain as an emotional blueprint, an emotional alliance, and then HPT and CBT, emotional interruption, with some client observations for you. We want to make sure that you fully understand all that we're going to talk about today. So the first one is our emotional blueprint. So what does this actually look like? So this is just an overview of your brain. We're really going to focus on just 3 of the areas today. We're going to focus on our brain stem, where the HPT pattern opens your brain. We're going to focus on the temporal lobe, where the emotions are created and memories are stored. It's also where your amygdala, you'll hear about a lot today, is actually living. And then the frontal lobe, where your executive processing actually happens. And we're going to find out even more about why your executive processing is so influenced by what happens in your amygdala. So if you have not seen this particular flyer, you definitely want to get in touch with me or check your back office. As a Vox Life associate or practitioner, you definitely want to use this as a resource. It fully explains how HPT technology interacts with your body as a whole. And with that said, it incorporates the emotional components as they relate to fight, flight, fear, or faint. Our foundational premise lies in what Vox Life shares here, that the central nervous system, your CNS, processes information and activates the commands for your peripheral nervous system, or your PNS, to follow, from regulating pain to maintaining motor control and balance. You're going to find out today it does a number of other things as well. So this overall is your nervous system. So I know for those of you who are not interested in science, bear with me. I promise you we will get to the emotions because it all ties together. So the top part of this is really your central nervous system, where your frontal lobe, your temporal lobe, and then your brainstem live. Then you also have your peripheral nervous system. We'll talk about that in just a second. What I want to point out here is over on the right-hand side, you're going to see that big red X. That is actually where your amygdala is located. And notice how close it is to the brainstem. All your emotions, good or bad, tend to stem from your amygdala. So let's see what that actually looks like. So the function of the amygdala is really concerned with emotional and behavioral functions. It's responsible for strong, effective reactions, such as your fear, anger, and also emotions associated with sexual behavior. Now, we're not going to get too far into those today, but notice again with that red circle where your amygdala is in relation to your overall brain, especially your brain stem. Now, what does all this mean? In our brain, your amygdala is stimulated for any reason, good, bad, or indifferent. Our body responds in a way that keeps us in either upstairs brain, which is regulated body, it's a set of emotions that allows us to use logic, reason, judgment, rationalization even. Or it sends us to downstairs brain, which is dysregulation. And that is run by fight, flight, freeze, or faint. And that is in order to protect you. Now, we see this in many children, and to be honest, a lot of adults, when they can't answer your question or maybe even understand what you're requesting, or they fly off the handle because they're overstimulated, or maybe they're hungry, or they're just unable to figure out what's going on with themselves, and so they tend to take it out on you. They basically slide right down those stairs into complete chaos of dysregulation. But here is a helpful hint. Don't take the slide down with them. You have to stay regulated. You have to be at calm and at peace so you can help them, especially our children, identify what they need to do to get back up the stairs in the upstairs brain. And so that is going to be true for what we're going to discuss moving forward. So as you're seeing that nervous system, let's go back to the peripheral nervous system for a second. Notice that there are two areas. It's the parasympathetic, which is basically at rest. You're able to digest your food, you're able to be calm, and your body's working very well in conjunction with each other. But then you have the sympathetic nervous system as part of this, and that is your fight or flight. This is absolutely subconscious. And in the moment of fight or flight, it is going to actually get involved with the amygdala, which is basically propelling that subconscious physical and emotional reaction within your body into the peripheral nervous system. Or just as we just mentioned, it's sending you down to your downstairs brain into complete dysregulation. Now, those emotions have been created in those situations now appear as emotional trauma and even later could look like PTSD. Now, to note, there is one other F that we haven't really talked about, and that's called fawn. And the fawn response involves immediately moving to try to please a person or to avoid any conflict. So those of us who may be people pleasers, we really want to make sure that you're not actually in a fawn state. And that means you're basically in fight, flight, freeze, faint, fawn all the time. And so for our conversation today, we're really going to focus on just the first four. So I want you to think back. You're walking in the woods, you encounter a grizzly bear, or in this case, whatever that thing is with teeth, and you can either fight it, you could flight it, you could freeze, or you could faint. So these fight, freeze, or faint situations cause our bodies to create an escape plan of some sort. It's either stay and fight, take flight, paralyzes our system, or it even causes our systems to overload and you faint. PTSD occurs when the body is unable to discharge that plan to draw a conclusion to the event. The emotional and physical symptoms become stuck in our nervous system, just like a record that used to skip. Yes, I'm showing my age there. But this is really true for a lot of our soldiers, our first line responders, when they're in those high stress environments constantly. If you're in an abusive situation, you will find the same to be true, where you're on high alert all the time. Children who are neglected or abandoned in their situations are on high alert all the time, survival mode, basically. So in a typical 4F situation, the amygdala will send signals to your hypothalamus right beside it, which then stimulates that automatic nervous system that we were just talking about. Your body then releases adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate gets faster, your increased oxygen flow to your major muscles in case you need to run, your pain perception drops, your hearing sharpens, and listening for danger. Your peripheral vision increases so you can notice your surroundings. Your blood actually thickens, which increases your clotting factors. And then this prepares your body for injury. As your blood flows, it also increases straight to your major muscles, which protects your core organs. So signs and symptoms of emotional distress could include irritability, short fuse, obsessive or compulsive behaviors, lack of energy, memory problems, brain fog, isolation, even a diminished libido. Now that's never fun for anybody, right? So what is this then, this brain emotional alliance? Now that we have a better understanding of what's actually happening in the brain with the amygdala setting off all the cortisone and the hormones, and we're going to talk more about that in just a second, and it's sending that straight to your system to activate your fight, flight, freeze, or faint. Let's discuss how they actually form an alliance. So in essence, from an emotional standpoint, I want you to take note of the proximity of that brain stem. So you see the brain stem on the right-hand side in black, and then you notice that's what the HPT pattern is opening up. And right next to it in that little blue section, you're actually opening up the limbic system, which is where the amygdala lies. So if you'll notice, there's also a yellow section on that brain. That's your prefrontal cortex area. When the threat is so strong for you, whether it's real or perceived, the amygdala acts quickly, instantaneously. It's going to overpower those frontal lobes and send you not just a downstairs brain for dysregulation, but it's triggering the fight or flight response. Now, without your frontal lobes, you can't think clearly. You can't make rational decisions, and you can't control your responses. So you know how everybody talks about, I think I just, went in my pants when I got a little nervous? That's what they're talking about. You can't control those responses. So control has basically been hijacked by your amygdala. So you'll notice with the stoplight, you've got this life threat, this freeze in mobility. Yellow is like danger, you're self-protecting, but green, you're safe, you're relaxed, you're engaged, you're at rest, and you're digesting. And not digesting your food is pretty important to note, because in yellow and red, it shuts that system down completely. So what are we talking about with all these emotions? And you're going to see a nice happy feelings wheel there. And while you're looking at those, I just want to point out a couple of things to you. Your frontal lobe, commonly known as your control center of your brain, monitors your emotional state, while the thalamus is an information center that regulates your consciousness. It participates in how your emotional responses are executed. Now, how does that play into the amygdala? Remember, the amygdala is the high alert function. So the high alert piece will then activate that frontal lobe to either shut it down, to not regulate the consciousness, and to then cause that fight, flight, freeze, or faint. External stimuli can cause our bodies to react, which results in an emotional response. In previous thought, it was understood there was only 6 actual human emotions: happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, and disgust. You'll notice those in the very center of this wheel. Scientists have now found that number could be as many as 27. And get this, you can actually have all 27 emotions at one time. No wonder we slide down the stairs to dysregulation when we are overstimulated. So the reason that we've been discussing the 4Fs is we actually have 27 of these emotions flooding our system during a 4F event. Again, whether it's real or perceived. And real threats are usually obvious. They're potentially dangerous and more often than not involve physical harm. But for example, I would not think twice about protecting myself from someone climbing in my window, from my window at night, right? But perceived threats, these are the ones that tend to come back to, say, haunt us. Those are usually the mental images, such as memories or ideas, videotapes of a traumatic event that may have happened many, many years ago, but it constantly plays in our mind because it hasn't been processed yet. So what does all this look like? So this particular photo is an emotional body map. It demonstrates how a person can store their feelings in their body. Then notice what the hijacking can do to our entire bodies when emotions take over. Even love can be triggered by fight, flight, freeze, or faint. So from a trauma release standpoint, imagine what the body would look like if shame, depression, anxiety, disgust, fear were all processed. If the trauma was processed, the emotions attached to the trauma were optimized by HPT technology, and your brain was open and able to process these emotions. That could look radically different. So how do we have this emotional interruption by the HPT and the CBT? So a lot of information on this slide, so bear with me. So what you're going to see is really your brain in the middle and all the different types of responses that we can have. Now, when we're in upstairs brain, we are actually working well. We have frontal lobe interaction. We have executive processing that works. We're in self-control. We can express empathy. We have emotional identification. We have controlled inhibitions. We have higher intellect interaction. We have planning and decision-making. And HPT technology optimizes the brain. It keeps it regulated. CBT cognitive boost technology releases the amygdala hold on the frontal lobe. Now, what about downstairs brain then? We're really talking about that brainstem in the limbic region. So the amygdala has been activated for all the wrong reasons. The amygdala hijacks the frontal lobe. It causes your inhibitions to be absolutely unleashed. Alcohol can actually keep you in downstairs brain longer. There's emotional disunity, lower intellect interaction. There's emotional reactivity, physical responses, your fight, flight, fear, faint, or fawn, and then you're just dysregulated, right? We're staying in downstairs brain. We're not able to make higher functioning interactions. So the amazing key to HPT, what you see in the red there, is the brainstem opening. If the brainstem is open, then there is an instant push to regulate the brain, thus the body. And as the brain optimizes, the person is automatically sent back to upstairs brain. From upstairs brain, the emotional responses are more level, balanced, rational, self-controlled, most of all, regulated. And that's what we're looking for. So that's what HPT is actually doing, optimizing the brain so you can stay and be regulated. Now, let's just talk about the sleeve for a second. The sleeve is where we have our cognitive boost technology. And I took this off straight off the eSmarter website here. The symptoms of the amygdala hijacked can be erased or stopped by consciously activating your frontal cortex, the rational, the logical part of your brain. So when we use this cognitive boost technology, and that's the red silicone pattern that you're seeing, and we wear this on our arm, as the white paper for cognitive boost technology tells us, the pattern activates the frontal lobe. Remember the frontal lobe that had been hijacked? So now, instead of it being hijacked, it's being activated. And now you can focus better. You can remember more. You can feel less stressed. You can stay in the zone. You can actually have rational, emotional, higher intellect decision making. CBT basically negates the frontal lobe takeover and brings the brain back to upstairs brain. Who doesn't need that? We should all be walking around with our sleeves on, shouldn't we? Now, just just wanted to point out one thing here that was also on the Vox website, because we've been talking about our brain health, our neural health. 100% of the participants in an independent study experienced an average of 36% increase. I want to read that again, folks. 100% had a 36% increase in brain optimization, AKA they were regulated. It makes you wonder why we are not issuing a sleeve and insoles to every single person on this planet. We only have a 1 billion person goal, but there's 7.6 billion on this planet, and every single one of them needs these products. That's how important this is. Can you imagine if we were all walking around with our brains activated? So let's talk about some client observations for a second. Now, the first one that I'm going to talk to you about, as soon as I get this silly little paper to give me what I need, is actually my brain. This is a scan of my brain. This is a bioresonance scan. The left side did not have HPT technology on at all. The black diamonds that you see, that's actually the worst that you can get. I had a traumatic brain injury back in '94, and I can still see the effects 30 years later. So this was a little over a year ago. At that point, I had been wearing HPT pretty consistently for since June, July of that year, so about 6 months. And what you're going to see here is the maroon red triangles are not good. The red triangles, the blue rims are more intense issues, and then it moves to a darker orange. So what you can see is the head hit that I had, where you'll see the very bottom of the brain being affected, has a lot of triangles. And then you've got some very black diamond spots there as well. And it just dawned on me that that black diamond spot is actually where I had my melanoma. Isn't that fascinating? All right, so then it comes up to the frontal lobe where you see more red triangles, right? Now notice on the right-hand side, all I did, folks, was put the insoles, my feet on the insoles. That was it. And notice what happened to my brain. Not only did my brain optimize, but it optimized all the lobes in my brain. There is no black diamond now. The majority of the maroon and red triangles with the blue rims changed to a dark orange. Many less red triangles. Dark orange ones had changed to opaque, and more yellow appeared. Yellow is a good thing. So the brain has been activated, the body is responding, and I'm now regulated back into the frontal lobe of my brain, because my brain, because of my trauma, my head injury, stays in dysregulation in the frontal lobe. It mimics ADHD pretty severely. Now I want to show you my brain in one other format here. This is actually my brain stem. This program is pretty phenomenal. So this is my brain stem. And over on the left, you're going to see again without the HPT on. You've got red triangles, you've got the orange. I have one yellow indicator. That's it, right? The yellow, remember, is a good thing. Now, over on the right, look what happened. Look at all the yellow that's now available. The red triangle with blue rims have changed to just dark orange. There are no red triangles. The dark orange ones have changed to an opaque version. And there's so many more yellow ones. The body is responding. I'm telling you guys, this technology, drug-free, and all you have to do is put it on. That is what we're talking about here. Now, what about some other observations? So I have a client who's mid-50s with dissociative disorder and several alters identified. This client initially just put their feet on the insoles. That was it. It was the first session that client did not actually switch alters. That is unbelievable. That not only shocked the person, but it shocked me as well. That same client added the eSmarter sleeve when it was available. Headaches lessened, emotional stability increased, fear decreased dramatically. So much so that this client and the son took their first trip by themselves in 4 years. That was huge. And then I have a teen client with high anxiety on the ASD scale, high functioning, and it's called Asperger's, and some other health deficits. Prior to the introduction of HPT to the client was extremely moody, becoming extremely depressed, actually hiding, non-responsive to touch, and initially just used the socks and the insoles. Within 1 week, the client outlook changed dramatically from what the teens call emo look or the old goth style, again, showing my age there, to a visible, more normal look for a teenager. Mood swings had reduced. The teen would deliberately sit by the mom and put the head on mom's shoulder. Even today, will intentionally identify emotions. I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated, and ask for hugs. So then I have the client also start using the eSmarter sleeve when it was released. And the need for the ADHD supplement was nullified. Grades went from CDF to AB within 1 semester. Organizational skills still needed tools, but overall the teen even started a college course this semester. The confidence level has been through the roof. Now, if this teen is typically becoming angry or defensive or even fatigued, the first question asked is, do you have your socks and your sleeve on? 9 times out of 10, the teen does not. Another client is a 6-year-old client with severe ADHD, literally running circles in the house. And the child, severe hyperactivity. The family had tried multiple sensory tools, like to the point they had installed like this special sensory swing that could hold up to 600 pounds so everybody could sit in a swing because of what the child really needed in those moments. It was kind of crazy. And instant results from just putting the socks on. Instant. The child immediately calmed down and went upstairs and brought this book to me for me to sit down with the client and read it. It was, the mother was just in awe of what had just happened. And the child is now happy, able to work through a simple task without meltdowns. And the child even wants to swim in the socks because it changes the brain so much that the 6-year-old can tell a difference during swim lessons. Then there's a mid-30s client with severe emotional trauma. The client had witnessed a murder by their father, and the emotions were completely locked in the central nervous system. PTSD showed up as perfectionism, control, fear of the future, among other emotions and issues. Basically could not interact with emotions at all. Not necessarily dissociated from them, but definitely paralyzed to, or even at the thought of having them. So the client just put their feet on the insoles during a session. And the client was not only able to identify emotions the client was having, but also allowed them to flow. And by this time, we had probably 10 sessions. Never seen this happen with this client up till then. The client was actually crying and releasing the pent-up emotions from the events 25 years prior. It was huge, huge breakthrough. Then the teen client with severe anxiety and ADHD. This particular teen had not had any eye contact, usually keeps down, doesn't want to look at anybody, stays in the background, has had severe suicidal ideations, and really could not concentrate on anything for more than about 3 seconds. With that sleeve on, instantaneous change. There was no 20-minute delay for this child. Instantaneous. The teen put the sleeve on and immediately went, whoa. And I went, what? I've never seen that corner of the room before. This teen has seen this particular room multiple times over the years. The teen then makes eye contact, asks to interact with other family members, and actually smiles. The last client is a mid-40s client on the spectrum. and very, very analytical. And that client had not even been diagnosed on the spectrum when we started sessions together. And that client put their feet on insoles during the session, and the client's brain went from absolutely spinning circles, as this client puts it, to just still. And this client said their brain had never been still in the history of their life. They didn't know what to do with that. After their ASD diagnosis, the client used the insoles and the sleeve, and the client was able to make some key life changes, big mindset shifts, and really able to finally put together a business plan for a lifelong dream business that they had. So you can see the emotional contents and changes that happen with these products is just unbelievable. So if you want to learn more about this emotion altering drug-free technology, I want you to visit radiantjoy.vox, V-O-X-X, life, L-I-F-E.com for more details. And I would be happy to have another conversation with you at any given time as well. So glad that you guys joined us today. And remember, out of your heart springs the wellspring of life. So we want that to be regulated, right, guys? All right, you guys have a blessed night and take care.